The Salem witch trials happened in a very weird time in colonial history, if I'm being completely honest. They occurred in colonial Massachusetts in 1692 and were a series of witch hunts that ended in the execution of a total of 19 people. So why could it have happened? It happened in a time of change of colonial society. There was more of a backlash against religion, and this Puritan religious reliant society was on edge. There was more religious change to make people less religious and more worldly and more business minded. It also occurred in sequence with a European witch hunt. The European witch hunt lasted from the 1300s to the 1700s, where about 100,000 people were tried for witchcraft. Salem was a strongly religious community living in isolation in the New World, so it can be seen that it might have been easy for the community to believe that the devil and evil were around them. This fear was heightened because of the conditions of the time as well. Less than 10 years previous, the Massachusetts Charter was revoked, causing the colonists to fear religious attack from England and fear of losing a grasp of their colony. There was also a smallpox epidemic, family rivalries, an influx of refugees from King William's War, and a threat of an attack from Native American tribes. This was an extremely stressful and fearful environment, so it makes sense that if an idea of the devil was implanted into the brains of the colonists, it would stick. So, what were witches and why were they accused? Many practicing Christians had a strong belief that the devil could give certain people that came to him power to harm others in return for their loyalty, and that they would trade their souls for his assistance. It was believed that they would use demons to do magical deeds, change forms from human to animal, and ride through the night to secret meetings. During this time, there were definitely people who worshipped the devil, but they never embodied the ideals listed before. The girls who were having fits would scream, make weird sounds, throw things, contort their bodies, and say that they were being bitten or pinched. During these, they would call out the name of the witch in the trial or who they accused. The women and men who were accused of being witches either went against the trials, were social outcasts, or were enemies of the most important families in Salem. It was a mix of church politics, family feud, and hysterical children that was approved by politics and trials. The hunts of witches were less of trying to find people who were already witches, but were instead a hunt of trying to identify witches in the villages who weren't. They began with suspicions, but escalated to accusations and executions. So, what caused these girls to have fits that had the effect of executions? Modern science has looked into this and has come up with many possible options. The girls could have wanted attention or were egged on by their parents to accuse people. The strange behavior could have been a mix of asthma, Lyme disease, epilepsy, child abuse, delusional psychosis, or convulsive ergotism. Many people believe that it was the latter because that is a disease that comes from rye infected with the fungus ergot, which can cause vomiting, choking, fits, hallucination, and the idea that something was crawling on their skin. The girls were essentially on LSD because LSD is a derivative of ergot. So what exactly happened during the trials? During the Salem witch trials, more than 200 people were accused and 19 were executed. The trials became synonymous with paranoia and injustice. In the January of 1692, Reverend Parris's daughter and niece Abigail and Elizabeth Williams started having fits after playing voodoo games. The local doctor, William Griggs, blamed the supernatural on their illness. The two girls blamed Tituba, a slave, Sarah Good, a beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman. Good and Osborne said they were innocent, and Tituba said what they wanted to hear, probably because of her vulnerable position as a slave, and told about how she was visited and was working with the devil. Tituba's confession was used as evidence of the presence of more witches, and the hysteria continued. The governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony called an official court of oyer and termine, which means to hear and decide. It was made up of the colony's lieutenant governor and 7 judges. They would use the special claims of the victims as spectral evidence, and people who confessed or gave names of other witches were spared the court's vengeance, and those who claimed innocent were put in prison or executed. On June 2nd, Bridget Bishop was the first convicted, and on June 10th, she was hung on Gallows Hill in Salem Village. Accusations of individuals spread through other communities and eventually executed 19 people, and 5 died in custody. And by May of 1693, the governor had pardoned everyone in custody and the trials came to an end. So, what were the important ideas to draw out of the Salem witch trials? Many people have connected the Salem witch trials to the Red Scare of the 1950s. During that time, they had a witch hunt of communists, and that was fueled by the fear of what was happening around them, similar to the Salem witch trials. It also made people think about the fairness of the legal justice system. During the trials, the accused witches were allowed no lawyer and had no legal counsel to guide them through the difficult decision of pleading guilty or non-guilty. Many from the trials confessed their guilt, including Judge Samuel Sewall, and the state of Massachusetts apologized for the events in 1957. Thanks for watching!